Sometimes anger gets a bad rap. Anger is a legitimate emotion, and when under control and in the right situation can be very useful. It's a powerful form of energy that motivates us to take action. And anger gives us strength and tenacity when we face adversity. While anger can be a blessing, it can also be a curse. The flip side is that anger can control us, cloud our reasoning, and make us do things we will regret after we cool down. Overreacting usually makes any situation worse. The foundation of power is the ability to control your emotions. Angry people usually end up looking ridiculous. People begin to lose respect for someone who is always getting angry, and some will even trigger these angry types on purpose for their amusement, just to watch them explode. Enemies see how easy these angry types are to manipulate, and exploit this weakness to gain the upper hand. Having a quick temper and getting angry over little things is a sign of weakness that takes effort to change. We all have triggers that lead us to overreact. But if this happens a lot, you have to ask yourself, who is in control of your emotions? Is it you? Or do circumstances and other people control you? Understand, no one can force you to become heated. You might say, well, there are some circumstances where anyone would be angry. But is that really true? Is it possible there are some people who would remain calm and collected under those circumstances? My life experience tells me that I get to choose. That we all get to choose our reaction to anything that happens to us. There are a lot of things in life we have no control over. And for me, to get rid of my anger, I needed to stop trying to control things I had no real control over. We can't completely control events or other people, at best we can only influence them. When we focus our efforts on things we can't control, we accomplish nothing but getting more frustrated. If you focus on the unfairness of a situation, you're focusing on something you can't change. I wish the world was a fair place, but look around, it's not. What you focus on expands. So when you focus on things you can't control, like the weaknesses of other people, the negative energy around those circumstances will grow. The good news is that when you focus on what is under your control, like improving your outlook and behavior around a situation, that positive energy will expand outward. The one thing we have the ability to control is ourselves. Our conscious thoughts, our mindset, our outlook, our habits, and how we respond to events that happen to us. When you choose your own healthy response to circumstances, you affect your relationship to those circumstances in a good way. By working inside on yourself, you create positive energy that will make the situation better. There is a gap, a space between anything that happens to us and how we respond to it. In that gap, we have the ability, the freedom to choose our response. It's our responsibility, our ability, to choose how we respond to what happens to us. Once you are aware of this basic freedom we all have, you begin to see that by overreacting we give this freedom away, choosing to let outside events control us. So why do we give this freedom away? In part, it's because we've learned to use anger to help us cope with life's frustrations. And on some level, it works. There's a payoff. The reason we repeat a negative behavior again and again is because there is some kind of payoff. When we understand what these payoffs are, we can begin to look for healthier, better ways to deal with frustration and get the results we want. Anger can be a way to temporarily reduce stress by blowing off some steam. It's also a great way to gain attention and get people to listen to you. People who are angry all the time have conditioned themselves to believe that anger helps them get what they want. Maybe they discovered when they were little, if they threw a temper tantrum, their parents would give them what they wanted. Getting angry with others is also a common way of trying to force others to do what you want them to do. Intimidating people with anger might work in the short term, but long term it always backfires. It creates bad feelings like resentment, turning people into enemies. The most common but least understood payoff is using anger to hide an underlying emotion. Anger is a secondary emotion. Just before we get angry, we feel something else. We might feel threatened, attacked, or disrespected for a split second just before we get angry. Think of anger as an iceberg. Most of an iceberg is hidden below the surface of the water. We can easily see the tip of the iceberg when a person is pissed off. But there are usually other emotions hidden beneath the surface. This underlying emotion is typically, but not always, fear. Powerful emotions like jealousy, shame, sadness and hurt are hard to feel. We avoid them because they leave us feeling vulnerable. Being vulnerable means we might get hurt. Anger protects us from these raw feelings that are painful. So we cover these emotions with outbursts of anger. Anger is not the problem, it's just a coping mechanism for an underlying emotion that we don't want to deal with. Remember, there is a gap between what happens and your response. Become self-aware enough to look for that gap. Just as you feel anger starting to build up, slow things down and explore your thoughts. Keep in mind that the shift from a primary emotion like fear or sadness to anger is fast and unconscious. So it will be hard at first to notice anything but your anger. Ask yourself, what am I feeling underneath this anger? Most likely it's fear. If it's not fear, look for sadness, jealousy, shame or hurt. What other emotions do you feel? What would happen if you stayed with the primary emotion for a while before you moved to anger? Being mindful and thinking like this will help you discover what the real problem is. Don't try to fix your anger. Instead, understand anger as your mind's way of avoiding an emotion that could be painful. Your anger is telling you there is another emotion underneath it, and that you need to deal with that primary emotion. When you identify the underlying emotion, you can begin to find out what is really bothering you and work on real solutions. This is a huge step in getting control over your anger. The other key for me was letting go of trying to control people and events outside of my control, and instead working on what I have the ability to control: my thoughts, outlook and reactions. It takes practice and effort to make that healthy choice. But when you do it over and over again with persistence, that healthy response becomes ingrained into your subconscious and becomes natural and automatic. Anger is a valid emotion in and of itself. It can be a guide telling us when we need to make changes. It can give us energy and make us stronger when facing adversity. But life is too short to feel angry all the time for no apparent reason. You can learn to let go of your anger and have better relationships with others. That anger can be replaced with peace and happiness, leading to a more rewarding life.